Okay, let's see if we've got him back on. Stuart
Yeah,
Wilde, are you
I
back
wound
on
up
your...
in the host queue, and I was going, hello, 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 I didn't get you.
Oh, my gosh, you were hosting your own show.
I'll tell you what was weird. I got a phone card from the 7-Eleven, and when I punched in the code, it said it's an invalid card. So that took me 5 minutes. Anyway, listen, nice to talk to you. I haven't talked to you for ages and ages and ages, but we did some shows together years ago, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
For going quite a ways back, you know.
Yeah, before the flood.
Yeah, I know. So I've been talking to Carrie O'Connor. Of course, she's a regular weekly guest on News for the Soul, and she's been telling me all about the time she was hanging out with you over in Ireland and then in Vegas, and you're coming now. Apparently, you're here, and we were just to know what was going on.
Yeah, Nicole, listen, your voice is breaking up, so I'm only getting little bits of stuff. Are you on a mobile or something?
No, I'm just going to switch my headset. Hang on.
Okay.
I love the technical things these days. Boy, oh boy, it's just constant.
Yeah, no, that's loud and clear now. That's an improvement. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
So you were talking about Carrie O'Connor. Yeah, she's a good friend, and she came over to Ireland for a few weeks, and she got to hang out with me and other people, and yeah, it was really, really good. You know, Chris Krebsick of thehoodedsage.com was there and so forth.
Yeah, well, she was saying that you're up to some very interesting things, so I'm just bursting to get the latest Stuart Wilde news.
Well,
so
I'll tell you what. Okay, here's the story, Morning Glory. I saw this great light come into my hands about maybe 6 months or a year ago, and I could see it with my eyes shut, inner sight, and I could see it with my eyes open, normal sight. And then I saw these visions that told me to go and put my hands on people and, offer them a kind of spiritual renewal, a blessing, a healing, So I started trotting around Ireland, and I went to a place, a sacred well called St. Patrick's Well, and then the committee threw me out. They didn't want me there. So I went to other places, and I've been doing healings in Canada and, just various spots. I'm going to go to Italy and do them in Rome at the Vatican. And I posted all on my site, stuartwilde.com with a U, S-T-U-A-R-T, so people can follow along if they come. I've done 2,411 so far. So I'm motoring. Yeah.
You are motoring, I know. And
yeah, that's in about 6 weeks or 8 weeks, I haven't started that long ago,
And you were in Vegas.
Yeah, I was in Vegas. I had 705 people. And I did a short healing on all of them, and then I did a much longer healing, so I kind of did 1,410 healings there.
Jeez. So tell me about the healing itself. What is it? What's going on?
Well, what it is, I have to back up and tell you something else. Like 2.5 years ago, I saw this light. I was in Vancouver, actually, on the water, an apartment on the water, facing Granville Island, and I saw this light appear in the room, and it was strobing all around the room. It looked like an oval football. And it was going ping, 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 and it was there for like 5 hours. And I saw the Christ consciousness and the solar logos and hosts of angels, many things, And at the end of that series of visions, and there were 4 other people in the room, they saw it as well. I got stigmata through my hands and my feet. And it's the sensation of nails or skewers going through your skin. It's extraordinarily painful. And it's been raging for like 2.5 years. It's eased off a little bit now, but it's still going. And it was really, really strange. I really didn't know what was happening, but I was very calm and composed, and I saw visions and stuff that helped me. And it was after the sort of pain of this stigmata thing for 2.5 years that the light came into my hands. So it wasn't sort of like imagined or... hold on a second. I don't know how to operate this bloody system. Hold on a second. Oh, God. If I cut you off, I don't dare cut you off. Can you hear that phone ringing?
I can hear, but you know what? We're good.
Just let it ring. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I haven't got a clue. I haven't got a clue how to operate these things.
We don't want to lose you now. It's just...
No, I'm totally technologically challenged. I mean, I can't work a toaster, Anyway, I was after the stigmata, came and went. I mean, it went day and night for 24/7. And sometimes it was so excruciating, I'd have to lie on my bed and sort of meditate my way through it for an hour. Anyway, then after all of that, the light came. And essentially, it's a purple light, and it goes inside people, and it changes their fractal codes. It changes their geometries and the mathematics of their body, because humans are essentially lots and lots of little boxes, like pixels on a photograph, and those boxes contain codes like geometries and mathematics and tubes, you know? And so this light goes through the person, and where there's black, let's say, because they have some dysfunction in their body, it changes the code from black to purple, and they get better. And I've done healings on leukemia and brain tumors and asthma and autism, gout. I published on my site a few days ago, and 25 other diseases. But when I'm working on them, I don't know necessarily what's wrong with them. They may be troubled, psychiatrically troubled. I got one guy out of an insane asylum, and he called me from the asylum, and I told him what to tell the doctors to con him into letting him out, and he did that, and they let him go. And then he came to Ireland, and he stayed with me, and I did a healing on him. I mean, he was absolutely demonically possessed. He was completely round the bend. And he was cured, and he went off to Switzerland and got a lovely job at $120,000 a year.
Well, you have been busy.
Yeah.
So, why is this happening, first of all?
Well, my old teacher said 40 years ago that when this great darkness falls upon the world, because he knew all about the fascists and all this stuff that's going on now with, their arrests without trial and wars and all that stuff. He said when all that darkness comes around, which it has to come around because the human shadow has to come out and people have to see how ugly it is. He said that when the shadow and this darkness falls upon the earth, that the eternal Tao and the feminine spirit would come back to earth and as to compensate for the darkness. And so I think that why now is because the world is going ever more degraded and ever more, broken down, and it's just being ruled by these sort of fascists that are not even American. I mean, they come from another place. Are you there, Nicole?
I'm here. Are you
have
there?
To say something now, like, well, that's jolly boring shit, or something like that. I don't know what. Say whatever you want to say.
Well, hasn't the darkness always been here? We're just seeing it now? I mean, do you mean the fall?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was here. It was certainly here during the war and stuff like that with Hitler.
And before, in the Dark Ages,
before.
I would think it was here.
Yeah. But for some reason, we're approaching the end time, and so this is a sort of final phase, a recapitulation of evil, and then a recapitulation of the Christ consciousness, the solar logos, and goodness. And the solar logos is essentially a celestial light, and I was watching it like a couple of years ago, and I saw it coming into land, and when it landed, I translated it into this massive electrical transformer that was the size of like a small house. But essentially that light is here now, and the Christ consciousness is in there, and the Buddhahood, and the light of the the gods and the angels and the feminine spirit and Gaia. It's all there inside this solar logos, and so it landed, and now we get the benefit from it.
All right. So, did this light or this vision? Did it just come to you?
No, other people have seen it, like many have seen it, and sometimes they write emails and explain what they've seen and so forth, and Chris Krebsick, thehoodedsage.com, he writes about it, and it's a common thing. I mean, there's many visionaries and psychics and teachers that can see that light now. It's common to all of us. It's not an exclusive anything,
So what do you... are other people doing healings with it?
That I don't know about. I've got no idea, because there was a doctor that came to me, and I held his hands for 20 minutes, And then he went off and did healings, and he cured a lady of multiple sclerosis by just putting his hands upon her. And she went off to the hospital, and she had a scan, and the lesions in her brain weren't there anymore. So I have transferred it to two people by just holding their hands, and the doctor was the most spectacular transfer. But yeah, there's no exclusive anything, you know. I mean, it's like, it's the Christ consciousness. It's everywhere, you know.
Wow. Well, you know, Carrie came on and she said that she was blown away because you cured something in her head or something the first time that she got together with you. So she's been going on about it ever since.
Well, she had something in her hand that was becoming infected, and she would have had to go to the hospital for antibiotic injections. And after the healing, it wasn't there anymore, and so she was happy. Carrie was, yeah. Yeah, well, you know, it's like, it's sort of, it's miracles, but it's not really miracles. Because it's mathematics, it's geometry. So the purple geometries and the purple mathematics go through the person's body in the space of a few minutes, and it just changes the geometry of the septic finger, or it changes the geometry of the leukemia or the cancer or whatever else is, you know? So all of those things have a geometry. They have a fractal code. Like the Mandelbrot set, it's all a series of geometries and fractals. We're not solid beings. You know, I've seen a human dematerialize completely, myself and others. We've seen a human dematerialize more than 1,000 times. It's not a rare phenomena, and the reason that people can dematerialize is because the human body, when it's not in its sort of solid state, is in a wavy, hazy wave state, and it's not solid. It's not solid at all, and so that's why people come and dematerialize. So this non-solid being is sitting on a stool, and they're essentially a spirit with a physical body that has all of these geometries and mathematics in them. And as the purple light goes through them, like it's really like the Christ consciousness or the Buddhahood or whatever you want to call it. It's difficult to get into terms, but when the light goes through them, it fixes up their geometries and they get better.
So I know you were having events where you were trying to train people to see that dematerialization for a while. Were people able to see it?
Yeah. That's why there's 1,000. You know, that's why we've seen it for 1,000 times, because 200 of us have seen it 5 times each. Let's say, you know.
And how do we see it without being able to train with you personally? How do I see someone dematerialize?
Well, I can't guarantee that somebody that hasn't trained with me can see it, because I don't know where they're at and what they believe and, you know, how balanced they are and so forth. But the inner side comes from softness, it comes from kindness and calm, and it comes from the trance state. So you have got to be able to meditate and hold the sort of theta trance state 4 cycles a second. And then those inner worlds open up, but they only open up as much as you open up, and they only open up as much as you can purify your life, you know. So the inner side is usually denied to people that are sort of unprocessed and that haven't worked upon themselves and their shadow, and they haven't developed that kind of generosity and charity and kindness in their soul. You know, you have to have a good soul to see.
Neat. So you're getting all of these. You've got this light coming to you. You're being guided to travel around. Have you had many visions as to, you know, where things are at and where they're going in this transitional time?
Well, I've seen lots and lots of sort of visions of the destruction of Jerusalem and so forth. And I've seen visions of the collapse of the stock exchange and the sort of American political system and so forth. So we're living in a precarious time because things could go belly up at any time. I mean, right now the stock exchange is sort of being pumped by the Federal Reserve, and they're sort of pumping it up no matter what the news is. But once the election's over, it could easily come down. And then again, if there was a massive earthquake tomorrow somewhere like California, or if a meteor hit New York, you can see the stock exchange collapse overnight. So we're in an age where the shadow's coming out, the goodness is building to compensate for the shadow, and then the systems of 3D, like Wall Street and so on, that's so like corrupt and manipulated, those systems eventually fall apart because everything has to return to a sort of order, a beauty. You know, it's like Gaia, the spirit of the earth, is here to restore the natural balance of things.
So you're still seeing that sort of process going on. What on the other end of the scale, with this light coming in and other stuff on that end of the scale, what are you seeing for the future?
Well, you don't get to see 10 and 20 and 30 years ahead, but I don't believe that the world will end in 2012, you know? The Mayan culture was extraordinarily rinky-dink. I mean, I don't know if people know that, but it sort of covered just maybe 1,000 miles of Central America. And they were very cruel. They were black magicians, and they had these blood sacrifices and tens of thousands of slaves, and they would chop people's heads off at the top of the pyramids and roll them down the hill. And what happened to the Mayans was that in the end, the slaves rose up and they slaughtered the kings and the priests and the aristocracy. And they stole the gold and returned back to their families in the forest from where they were originally captured. So the Mayans couldn't really foretell their own demise, and they couldn't foretell that, karma would find them and they'd all be rubbed out. And the fact that their calendar ends in December 2012 is, completely irrelevant. So I've seen visions of 2016, so we're definitely going to get past 2012.
Well, we're on the same page there, that's for sure. I love that. Rinky-dink. There you go.
Yeah.
But what is your most immediate communication? I mean, you're being guided to go to all these places. You're going to the Vatican. When's that happening? And how do you think that's going to go?
I'm doing healings in Italy, in Turin, on October the 14th, and I'm in Volterra on October the 16th. And I'm just waiting to confirm with a contact of mine in Rome. So I would say October the 18th I'll be in Rome, right there in front of the Vatican, where the obelisk is. And
how do you think that's going to go?
I've seen loads of visions of the collapse of the Catholic Church and its rebirth, its reconstitution. Once all the pedophiles and the black magicians are tossed out, it'll become new. There'll be a new pope. It'll come clean in the end, because it is a great inspiration for many religious people, albeit the dogma and all of that is very simplistic, but it's what they believe and it helps them. But we need to clean the gaff up, we need sort of Schwarzenegger to go around and clean house.
Oh, I'd pay money to see that.
Yeah.
Ironically. So what's happening here in Vancouver then? It was on the 20th, right?
Yeah, I've got some healings on the 20th. I only sent it out to the Stuart Wilde A-list people because I've got so many readers in Vancouver and so many people know me here that I was scared of getting swamped. And I can do about 80 healings in 2 hours. And I didn't want 500 people coming, so I didn't post it to my site. Now, it's faintly possible, and I have pre-booked the rooms that I've had to rent for Saturday afternoon. And if I go ahead with Saturday, I will post it on my stuartwilde.com site Thursday night. But the Thursday healings are just for the people that I'm emailed on the A-list because I was scared, man. I was scared 500 people were going to show up,
Which totally could happen, yes.
Which could easily happen, and I just don't want to disappoint people, and I don't want them getting angry, and I don't want them jostling and fighting each other. And, there's only a limit to how many I can do. When I do the healings, I usually do 2 hours, because when I put my hands on people, I have to concentrate ferociously. If I have any slight, interruption in my mind, I have to start again. So if I'm doing a healing and I suddenly think, oh my God, did I leave the iron on? I have to start again. So then to concentrate, on 80 people for 2 hours is quite a sort of effort. And I find that at the end of the 2 hours, I'm really fried and I can't really go on much past that. I can sometimes take a half-hour break and then do one more hour, but I'm limited to how many I can do at any one time.
This is the first time you've been guided to do healings, isn't it?
Yeah, I used to do some in the past, but they were all more people with psychological problems or people that were demonically possessed. I've done about 40 or 50 exorcisms. And essentially, I put my hand on the person and I scare the ghouls and the devils out of them. And that's how I do my exorcisms. It's dead easy, really. It's like baseball backcountry, you know. So, yeah, this is the first time that I've been sort of shown, you know, the healing thing. But again, it came from the stigmata. And when I tell people, hey, I've got stigmata, they look at me really blank and start twiddling with their dress, you know, looking up to the sky. They don't really know what I'm talking about, but it's the sensation of nails going through your hands and your feet.
Why do you think it would come through for you in that kind of way? I mean...
Oh, look, I've asked that why me question, and it's kind of irrelevant, really, because, you know, it's like, and, you know, why did it go to Padre Pio? I don't know. I mean, perhaps, I don't know. There was reasons for it. There must be some sort of higher reason, but mainly it's because I can handle the pain, and I'm willing to go out and do the work afterwards. So I would say that those were the two main reasons.
Huh.
Because somebody else, if they got it, they'd panic, you know, and they'd be in hospital, and the doctors would say, we don't know what's wrong with you. And they would go into sort of a psychological, psychiatric mess with that kind of pain going day and night. So I think because I can handle the pain and because of meditation and trance and so forth, that's why I got it, you know, but I don't have any other reasons. I mean, I wasn't shown any particular reason.
That's actually very true, isn't it? I mean, we would have a quote-unquote normal reaction if we weren't, you know, really prepared. And your health is good?
Yeah, I'm very strong. I've got a lot of stamina, you know, so I'm okay.
Are you able to heal yourself when things come up, or if they should come up?
Always. Yeah, always, every time. Yeah, if I have, let's say, I don't know, a pain in the gut or something, I just mentally put my hand inside my body, and I say a couple of little sort of prayers. Because when I do the healings, Nicole, I watch for these purple hands to come up, like a vision of a purple hand, you know, and I watch for them to come up 9 times. So when I'm touching somebody on the shoulders, I watch for those visions to come up, the purple hands. They come up. Once they've come up 9 times, the healing's over. So that can be like in 15 seconds, they can come up 9 times. But then I go on and I do some protection prayers and stuff as well, you know, beyond the actual healing. But yeah, I can sort of do the healings in 15 seconds. And then when I have a problem, like, I don't know, like I had a sort of indigestion pain across the top of my chest a few days ago, I just put my hand inside my own body and I pull it out, and that's it.
So how much is it driven behind your own intentions and attention, and how much is coming through you from somewhere else?
Well, I don't know. I can't sort of be particularly accurate on that. I don't know. But I don't charge for the healings that I do, and I do not accept donations. So there's no sort of ulterior motive on the financial front. So I've done 2,411 healings free of charge. I don't charge people. Now, when people come to a gig and there's a big hotel and the promoters are paying $10,000 a day, they have to charge people to provide the space. Yeah. But that's a different thing. But the street healings and all the other healings I've done, I've never charged anybody ever. And I never will. I'm just not allowed to charge, and I don't want to charge because I don't want a person sitting on the stool thinking, how much money have I got to give this git? And will a tenner do, or should I give them $50? You know, I don't want them thinking like that. I want them to concentrate on their salvation, their redemption. I call it the spiritual healing, the second chance. And it's like, hey, you know, do you want to be absolved, and do you want absolution for your illnesses and your, you know, disquiet and your pain? Because here it is, and it isn't going to cost you anything. So what's my intention? Well, my intention actually is to flee to the pub and not come back. So because it's a lot of hard work. It's expensive flying around and driving around to the various locations, and but there's a sort of love in it. There's a kindness, and you sort of want to try to sort of be kind to people because I have a compassion for their disquiet and their energy and their disease. So I'm kind of honored to help them. But there's no real ulterior motive in it for me, other than the energy heals me when I'm working with it. So there's a defined benefit there.
So were you guided and told it had to be free?
Well, there wasn't as if like some angel with flappy wings came down and said, "Make it free." It's just instinctively I felt like, hey, I didn't pay for these hands. I didn't pay for this light. I just got this light from the solar locus. It was given to me after a certain couple of processes I had to go through. And it's not fair that I charge people for it because I never paid for it in the first place, And, with the economy being as it is, I mean, how much can you charge a person? Okay, let's say they've got leukemia, right? I met a bloke in the pub that had leukemia, and I did a healing on him, and he was cured. And he went to the hospital, and they said his leukemia was non-detectable. They couldn't find it. Okay. When he's sitting there on the stool, he doesn't know who the hell I am. How much is he going to donate? Like $5, $10? What's, leukemia worth, And then later on, perhaps after he was healed from leukemia, he might want to donate, I don't know, $100 or $10,000. But I just don't want people getting into all that mess. Here's the light. It's free of charge. I got it for free of charge, and you can have it for nothing.
So how long do you think you're going to be traveling around doing these healings?
I don't know. It could be 5 or 10 years,
Wow. Because I know you particularly are not a big fan of air travel.
Well, only because, I've been like 62 times around the world, the equivalent thereof. And I've been to 61 countries. And, when you have to go through the airports and the security and all that stuff and the pat-downs and stuff, one guy put his hand down my trousers, at the airport, one of those TSA guys. And I said to him, look, sir, any more of that, I'm going to have to charge you entertainment tax. Now, will you knock it off? You got your hand down my bloody trousers. You're not allowed to touch me, will you? Now, F off and leave me alone. So that stuff's, very disturbing. And if I was a wealthy man, which I'm not, I'd have my own little plane and I would zoom around. But, yeah, I'm not a fan of air travel. I think it's very degrading. But hey, how are you going to get to these various places, I can heal radiation in people, Nicole. So I was thinking of going to Japan.
I was just going to say, is that on your travel plans then, Japan?
Well, I'm thinking about it. I mean, I don't know anything about Japan, and I don't even know if I have any... I know I've got Japanese readers, but I'm not really linked into people in Japan. But when people come to the healings, I test them with a Geiger counter, and we just run it across the front of their body. And we get these readings off of them for the amount of radiation they're giving off. And on our Geiger counter system, about 30 to 40 clicks is normal, and past 60 is abnormal. So this lady came along, and she was German, and she had a reading of about 66, and I did a healing on her, and then I retested her, and she was down to 45. And then a young boy came to see me in Cranbrook, BC, and he had a reading over 60, and again, he went down to like 38, 40, something like that after the healing. So somehow this purple light, the fractal codes, goes through the body and removes some of the radiation and restores the person back to normal. So yeah, I might go to Japan. I don't know. It's difficult. I don't really know any people there,
Well, I'm sure someone's listening. We have listeners there in Japan, and
yeah.
Who knows? Is there a guidance coming through with this purple light? I know there's no flappy wing angel, but I just keep getting pulled back there.
Yeah, no, I mean, yes, there's a guidance in the sense that I see these visions, and a lot of them are quite technical, and quite a lot of them are technological. They're complex mathematics to try to understand. It's not like I have to necessarily clunk the numbers, but I've got to understand what the pictures mean. And a mathematical formula or a geometric pattern is a code, so you have to understand what it's actually saying. And so, yes, there is a guidance trickling through, but there isn't a sort of spirit guide or Jesus or, Kudhumi or Bongo Dongo, the famous Tibetan. They're nothing. No, it's just information. So I sit there, and sometimes I pray, of course, and ask questions, but essentially I'm praying to the four walls. So I'm going, hello, walls. Now, how do you feel about healings in Zambia next week, whatever? And then the information comes flying in. So essentially it's information that it may come from some, I don't know, highfalutin spiritual place, but it doesn't seem like that to me. It just seems like visions that I see that emanate from my higher self.
Mm-hmm. Which is
so
probably exactly the same thing.
I'm sorry, Nicole?
Which is probably exactly the same thing, just semantics and different ways of seeing it, right?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's not like, I mean, I've seen hundreds of visions of Jesus. I mean, I saw one 3 days ago. And sometimes he's doing strange things. Like I posted on my site that I saw a vision of Jesus with a pig. And a pig is a symbol of the end time. Because when we see an apparition in the sky of an upside-down pig, that's the end. So with him having the pig under his arm was a way of saying that he's a custodian of the end. But it says in Revelations that he's Alpha and Omega. He's the beginning and the end. But it was a reassuring vision to think, well, it's all going to be all right.
Wow.
So yeah, did I answer your question or did I just ramble around it? I can't quite figure it out.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Are you still writing?
Yes, I am, yeah. At the moment, I'm working on an upgrade of a book I wrote in the mid-'90s called God's Gladiators. And it wasn't published by my publishers, Hay House or Random House or any of the other publishers that I've had contracts with because the book was quite controversial. But so it was published by a very small American publishing company. A man called Mark Ellis published it, and now I'm going to do a sort of an upgraded version and publish that. So I'm going to renew that book because it was actually, other than Plum Red, which is my latest book, it was the best book I ever wrote, God's Gladiators.
It was intriguing indeed. I remember speaking to you. That's the one you wrote in a remarkably short time, isn't it?
Yeah, I saw this being that appeared at the end of my sofa in Australia, and she had this digital fractal golden eye with sort of golden circuitry in her eyes. And she showed me the destruction of Jerusalem and several other visions. And then I got this feeling that she wanted me to write a book. And so I started the book at 11 o'clock on Sunday night. And I wrote it and finished it at 5 p.m. on Thursday afternoon. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, less than 4 days. And that was it. I wrote for 23 hours a day, and then I would have a steam bath and a cup of coffee and an egg sandwich, and I'd meditate for 20 minutes, and then I'd write for 23 hours again. So I wrote the book in 4 days, more or less non-stop, with 4 hours rest.
Steam bath and an egg sandwich.
That's it. Steam bath,
Wow.
egg sandwich, and a cup of coffee. Yeah.
That is amazing. Wow. Okay, so when that revised version going to be ready for us?
Well, it'll be done in a week or two, and then it has to go to the printer. I mean, before Christmas we should have it, you know. And then I'm thinking of about one more book. I mean, I've just bought out a book called Plum Red, which people say is very beautiful. I mean, it's not for me to say it's beautiful, but people say it's very beautiful. And it's sort of spiritual teachings presented as stories from the time of like 250 to 500 BC. And it's stories of the Taoist sages and one particular order of Taoist sages that were known as the sages of the plum red robes. And so that's why the book's called Plum Red. But it's not in the shops at the moment because we're having difficulty getting distribution and so forth. But if people click it, they'll find it. We have another site called the sacredtearsofgaia.com, and they can buy it mail order from there.
Excellent. I just want to remind people, because I'm getting 8 million emails here, it's all linked up on our homepage for the soul.com. You can find Stuart Wilde's site right there at the link at the top. I can't miss it.
Cool.
Well, it's hard to miss it. So, do you know how long you're in?
What's your site called, Nicole? I mean, like, what's the address of your site?
Oh, newsforthesoul.com.
Oh, okay, right, cool. I'll look it up in a minute.
You've been here a while, off and on, over the years. Many times we've talked, intriguing conversations, many times. And, you know, I got to say, I think you're one of my favorite human beings.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
How long are you in Vancouver for?
Oh, I've been here for 3 weeks, on and off, and I've been around to Cologne. I did a bunch of healings in Cologne and Cranbrook and so forth. So I'll probably be here like a week, 10 days more, and then I have to flee because I've got to go work. Got to go to work.
I would so love to be able to get together with you while you're in town.
Call Ryan for the phone number because I don't want to get you over the air. Okay.
No, of course. Yeah, good. Yes, indeed. You have a lot of calls, so you don't want to do that. But that would be great if we can connect, and I'd love to experience.
Yeah, we can. If we can't do it this time, I'll be coming back. So we'll do it next time. I'm sure within a month or two I'll be back here because there's so much stuff going on here at this time, you know. And
Yeah.
I'd like to do healings in Victoria Island. Is that what it's called? No, what's it called? Vancouver Island, isn't it? Yeah.
Vancouver Island, yes.
Yeah.
Very nice. Do
And,
you get drawn where the healings are needed most?
I think there is some inner system that draws me to places, but I'm not aware of it, you know.
Very interesting. Well,
I mean, I might get an impulse. For example, I had this impulse to do some healings in London, in Battersea Park, where the Golden Buddha is. And I typed it out, and suddenly it disappeared from the software. It wasn't there. So I had a little bit of a sort of irritation and a slight, threw me dolls out the pram and put the bloody thing back in again. And it blipped out a second time. And then I thought, right, one more time, this is it. It cannot possibly blip out. And the third time I put London and the details, it blipped out a third time. So I decided I'm not supposed to do London, not at the moment anyway. So for the software to suddenly just accidentally blip itself out, and it was an article on Irish healings and Italian healings and so forth. It wasn't like the whole article disappeared, just those couple of sentences that referred to London, and they disappeared 3 times. So, yeah, maybe there is a guiding system that goes, delete, delete. I don't know, but I don't want it to make it sound like... I don't want to make it sound, Nicole, like there's any specialness involved. You know, the light is for everybody. And yes, I've garnered this light in my hands because of the stigmata. And so what? You know, who cares? You know, it's only a matter of whether the lady sitting on the stool is going to be cured of her pains, you know, or the gentleman. That's all that matters. It's all about the humans and their pain. It's nothing to do with anything else, you know.
Well, I would just so love to experience this light and be able to tell everyone, you know, what's going on from a different perspective. And let's get together when we can, Stuart.
Yeah, well, look, if you want to come to the healings tomorrow, call Ryan and he'll give you the address. He's going to have to ask me for it, but if I get an email from him asking me for the address, then come along. It's 12:30 to 3:30.
Okay. All right.
Tomorrow.
Sounds like a date.
Yeah,
right.
near where we met before, you know, okay?
Yes, I got it.
All
okay,
right,
perfect. I feel very surreptitious. Stuart, it is a pleasure as always, and keep us in the loop.
Yeah, I don't want to deny people, but I'm so terrified. You know, like one day 5,000 people are going to rock up. You know, and I'm just terrified of 500 people rocking up because I can only do 80 in 2 hours. Now, I don't know, if I see some visions that allow me to sort of zip through 500 people, pinging them, then I could up my quota. But at the moment, I'm limited to this sort of hands-on. Well, I do people 2 at a time, and they take sort of a couple of minutes each. Because, you know, I use one hand with one person and one hand on the other person's shoulder. And doing that, I could do 40 an hour, 80 in 2 hours, and that's it, you know.
That's it. Cool.
That's
well,
it, man.
I will try to be there, and I so appreciate you being here today, Stuart. It's always a great pleasure.
Thank you very much.
StuartWilde.com. We'll keep you posted on and keep us in the loop as things evolve.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, I mean, I write my blog every day, and there's 2 or 3 articles every day, and some of them are teaching articles, and some are sort of things on lucid dreams. And today I posted a funny one about the Mormons and their underpants. Well, you know, the Mormons believe they have magical underpants, and I did a Mormon magical underpants story.
I literally never know what you're going to say next. I love that.
Well, the thing is I like to write humor into my stuff, because some people take spirituality and the journey and metaphysics and religion, they take it really seriously, and there's nothing serious, you know. God's a comedian, you know. She's very funny.
You have to have a sense of humor.
Yeah, you'd have to have a sense of humor to be God, wouldn't you? So, yeah, no, she's a funny person. And so I just want it all to be light and breezy and normal. You know, spirituality is the act of becoming ever more normal. That's what it is. It's becoming natural and returning to Gaia and your nature self and the normality of things, rather than, you know, wandering around with a diaper on your head, clanking a bell. Not to say that that's wrong, but it's all a bit over the top, do you see?
It is.
It's a thing that you have to evolve through eventually. One day you look at the diaper and you think, this is actually silly. Why is this on my head and why am I clanking a bell? And you go to the pub instead.
There you go. Stuart Wilde. In a nutshell. Thanks, Stuart.
Yeah,
Take
bye-bye
care.
now.
We'll see you soon. All right, stick around. We're just getting started today. That was, by the way, if you missed the intro, Stuart Wilde, stuartwilde.com, the one and only.